Hello students, welcome to the computer science digital class. Today we are going to study about the generation of computers. Generation of computer means the change in the technology a computer was or is being used. Initially the generation term was used to distinguish between varying hardware technologies. With the coming years, the usage of the computer was changed and there is a drastic change in the hardware in a computer. So nowadays, generation includes both hardware and software, which together make up an entire computer system. So change in a computer hardware or in a computer software was there from the beginning till today. It is been changing. So this evolution is often divided into five generations. So we were going to see how this generation is been divided. So here we can see the table that shows the generation of computers, the timeline of the generation and the evolving hardware, the changes in the hardware in these computer used in various times. So the first generation of computer is marked by 1940s and 50s. The computer that were used using during the year these 1940s and 50s are called first generation computer, and vacuum tubes were used in those computers. The second generation duration was 1950s to 1960s. So next decade of computer was termed as a second generation computer, and there was a change in hardware which is a transistor. So these computers started using the transistors. We are going to study further about these hardwares. But in this table, we are going to understand the tenure of these computers and the new evolving hardwares used by this latest generation computers. Then third generation is 1960s and 70s, and it was marked by the integrated circuit based. Then fourth generation, 1970s to the present, and it was marked by the microprocessor based. All those computers started using the microprocessors, and the fifth generation computer is the present and the future. This basically the computer that we are using today are marked by fifth generation computer, and because we are going are experiencing the artificial intelligence used in these computers. Studying further, let us see the characteristics of first generation of computers. The main electronic computer component used during those computer during the generation of those computer was vacuum tube. Vacuum tube, the here we can see is in an image that a vacuum tube were used. The main memories were magnetic drums and magnetic tapes. That time we did not have any optical drives or the flash drives. Only the magnetic drums and magnetic tapes were used. And the programming language used was machine language. Typically, you have to know the machine language, and there was no middle level language, no assembly language. Only the users were used to work in the machine language. Further, the first generation computer, their characteristics was the power. It consumes a lot of electricity and generate a lot of heat. The speed and size of those computers were very slow and very large in size. They often taking the entire room. The one computer would take the entire room. So it was that big because of the components. The bigger components makes a bigger computer. Then input output devices used was punch card and punch paper tape. And the example of those computers was ENIAC, UNIVAC, IBM 650, IBM 701, etc. And the quantity during that time, only 100 different vacuum tube computers were produced during 1942 and 1963. Then comes the second generation of computer. And the main electronic component of those computers were transistors. Here we can see the image of a transistor. And the memory used was magnetic core and magnetic tape disk. Programming language used was assembly language. The power and the size of those computers, they use low power consumption, they generated less heat and smaller in size as compared to the first generation computer. The speed of this computer was improved and reliability was also improved with the technology. The input and output devices used was again punch card and magnetic tapes. The example of second generation computer are IBM 1401, IBM 7090 and 7094, UNIVAC 1107 and etc. Then the characteristic of third generation of computer. The main electronic component during this third generation of computer was IC. IC was introduced and it was largely started using in those computer. The memory was large magnetic core, magnetic tape and disk. Programming language used was high level language, which were Fortran, formula translator, basic, beginners all purpose symbolic instruction code, Pascal and COBOL, C, etc. Further, the size of those computers were smaller, they were cheaper and more efficient than second generation computers, and they were called the mini computers. The speed was improved and also the reliability of the result produced by such computers. Input and output devices used was magnetic tape. Now, keyboard were introduced, monitor, printer, etc. All came during the third generation of computer. The example of such computers were IBM 360, IBM 370, PDP 11, UNIVAC 1108, etc. Further, the main electronic component of such computers were very large scale integration, which is marked by VLSI and microprocessors. VLSI actually is a thousand of transistors on a single microchip. As we have studied that in third generation transistors were introduced and in fourth generation they were used as VLSI where the thousand of transistors were introduced in a microchip. Then the memory used was semiconductor memory such as RAM and ROM. In fourth generation computer they were started using and programming language used was high level language such as Python, C Sharp, Java, JavaScript, Rust, Kotlin, etc. A mix of both third and fourth generation languages and these languages were started in third but very heavily used in fourth generation. The size was smaller, cheaper and more efficient than the third generation computers. Furthermore, the speed of fourth generation computer was more improvement of speed, accuracy and reliability. Input output devices used was keyboard, pointing devices, optical scanning monitors, printers. Now they were introduced during this generation. Even the printer was introduced and networking started during this generation of computer. A group of two or more computer system linked together and the networking started during the fourth generation during 1970s. The example were IBM PC Start 1000, Apple II, Apple Macintosh, etc. Then comes the fifth generation of computer. The main electronic component based on artificial intelligence used ultra large scale integration. Then in fourth generation we used VLSI and in fifth generation we started using ULSI, ultra large scale integration technology, which is a parallel processing method and it's a millions of transistors on a single chip. VLSI was a thousand of transistor in a single chip, but in ULSI technology, a single microchip can contain millions of transistors. A parallel processing method started where it provides us with the multitasking and two or more microprocessors to run tasks simultaneously, and more the system having a quad core or octa core, like in the single processor there are multiprocessor working for a same computer. The language used was understand natural language. In a human languages we have started using for the programming and coding the computer and making any work done by the computer using the common languages, and the power consumed was very less and generate less heat. Furthermore, the speed of these computers was remarkable improvement of speed, accuracy, and reliability in comparison with the fourth generation computer. So these fifth generation computer became the fastest and the accurate machine as compared to the previous generation. The size was very portable and small in size, and have a huge storage capacity. Input output devices used was keyboard, monitor, mouse, trackpad, and touchscreen. Even the speech recognition started. Light pen scanners, printers, etc. were used. And the example of such uh, computers are desktop, laptops, tablets, and smartphone, etc. So these were the generation of the computers. Thank you for being with us, and study hard and take a very good care of yourself. Thank you very much. Stay safe.